Hi everybody, welcome back to Small Caliber Arms Review. I'm Richard, and today we're going to make a set of gun grips. Yeah, I've made gun grips before. I made the copy carve and I showed you how it could be used to make a set of gun grips. But one of the reasons I'm so, I guess, hung up on making a set of gun grips right now is I've got this. This is a Cimarron Model P. It's the cavalry model with a 7.5-inch barrel on it. And the whole reason I got this one is because I wanted to do the holster from Have Gun Will Travel. Paladin's holster with the little knight emblem on the side of it there. It's just a simply black holster. But when I got this gun, it came with these, I guess they're walnut grips on it, whatever they're made out of. And they look good. It's a good looking gun with these grips on it. It's just not the right ones for the Paladin holster. And I like to do gun reviews where, especially when I'm doing these type guns, I like to do them kind of in character, I guess. And these just don't do it. So I made a set of just select pine gun grips, and this is the board I've got right here. And it's some of the same wood that I've used to make the cartridge boxes and stuff. And it's a pretty good looking grip. Right now it's hanging up and drying, but I dyed it black, or stained it black. It's actually a wood stain. I did not want paint on it because I still want to be able to feel the wood feel to the grips. I didn't want to build up layers of paint on it and have it, you know, look plasticky and stuff. So hopefully it'll look pretty good with the black stain and some true oil on it. And you'll still be able to get that wood feel to it. I made the copy carve to make grips, but you don't have to have anything like that to make a set of these gun grips. Now this is what they call a one-piece grip. And I believe this is actually made out of one solid piece of wood, but you can make one-piece grips without doing it in one piece. If you don't want that screw going through there, you can do it kind of like I did these grips. Now these were the ones I made on the copy carve and they didn't come out quite right. You've seen some of the issues if you watch that video, what I had with it. But I cut a spacer out to glue in between there, and I've got the spacer glued on one side of it, and all I have to do is glue the other side. Now the black grips I did for the Paladin holster, I did the same thing, but I took a lot more time with those, and I did cut them out by hand instead of using the copy carve, because the copy carve is a good tool for, at least the one I made is a good tool for roughing out a set of grips. But I'm going to show you how to do it if you don't have anything like that. And it's really not that hard. All you got to do is take your gun and remove the grips and then make a template for where that grip goes. We'll get a close-up look at that real quick. Okay, so here's your grip frame, and there's where the grip goes in there. Now the only thing that holds this in really is the back of your centerpiece right there is pushed up against the back of the back strap, and it's pushed up there by the frame part of it there, so it's kind of wedged in there, so it has to be a good tight fit. And what you want to do is make a good template of this area right here that is a solid representation of the space that you're going to fill in there. Now I use some of my pattern paper here. This is the same stuff I use on my leather holsters when I'm doing them. Cardstock, the little 3x5 index cards are good thick paper, kind of a light cardboard, I guess. Don't use any corrugated stuff. You want to use something that's thin but rigid, stiff, and you want to fit it right up in there. Now most of the time this is not going to be a 90-degree angle right in here. It's going to be something a little bit different, probably a little over 90 or under 90, whichever way you want to look at it. But you want to get one side of it straight in there, either side, either the top or the front part of it there. And then you'll want to kind of transfer your line down. And right now I'm just going to eyeball it. And I think that's probably a little too steep. But then I want to trim that up, and then we'll see how it fits in there. It might take you a try or two to get it to fit in there nice and solid. You want to make sure there's as few gaps as you can have in there. And that looks pretty close. Maybe I should have gone just a little bit more an angle. So if it takes you a time or two, you want to make sure you get that right, because that's going to be a really important part. You don't want any gaps there. It's not going to be the end of the world if you do get a gap there. Okay, so that looks like it's a pretty good fit up inside there. I don't see too much of a gap either way. Now the next thing you want to do is flip it over, and you're going to want to hold it so it's in there nice and firm up in that corner. Then take you a pencil and trace around the outside of it. Now this is not going to be exact because your grip frame actually has a little bit of a curve to it, and that's okay too, because this is not going to be your final piece that you're going to do here. But we do want to get this as close to being perfect as we can. Want to get it as accurate as you can. Now I've got a couple lines on there, but like I said, this is not going to be perfect right here. So we'll go ahead and get this part cut out. You can cut it right on the line, and if you're a little bit crooked, that's okay too, because there's going to be a lot of final fitting that's going to have to go on with this thing if you want to get it the best fit you can possibly get on there. It might be a little hard for you to see the pencil lines on there. That's okay too, because like I said, this is not the final right here. All right, now this will fit either side too. So you want to make sure it fits in there nicely and it covers up the whole grip frame. It's going to stick out a little bit on the sides. That's okay too. And like I said, you can use it on both sides. Now what you're going to do is you're going to use this to cut out. And I've already got one cut out. I did when I did the Paladin grips, and I marked it left and right. And like I said, that doesn't matter either. Now I've already made the Paladin grips. So what I wanted to do this time was I wanted to make a set out of oak. And I wanted an oak with a really tight, a lot of lines and a lot of grooves in it and stuff there, because I want to make a set of something that looks like they're really old weathered grips, kind of like that rifle they found out in the desert that had been there for who knows how many years, 100 years or whatever. The nice weathered barnwood look on the grips, because on this hanger I did for my possibles bag for the black powder stuff, I did that weathered look on it and I really liked it, and I thought, let's go ahead and try that with a set of oak grips too. Okay, so once you've got your grip piece cut out, you're going to go ahead and transfer that to the wood. Find the part of the wood that you want to, you know, the grain that you're looking for. And this piece right here, I just picked this up at Lowe's, and they got their little oak project boards. So this looks like a lot of nice lines in there. And I'm not going to go by their edge because it is not exactly what I want there. But I'm going to go ahead and trace around my pattern there. And that's another good reason for having the nice thick paper, is you get a good, I guess, tracing of your wood that you're going to use, and it makes it easier to trace it on the wood that you're going to cut out. This has already got some nice grooves in it there, so it's a little hard to trace and get it smooth, but that's also not a problem. You might want to use an ink pen. It makes it a little easier to see because you're going to sand most of this off anyways. Okay, so there's the left, and like I said, I can do just another copy of this because they're going to be the same either side. But I want to look at my grain, and I like the grain on this side, so I'm actually going to flip it over. It's going to waste a little bit of wood there. Not a complete waste, because I also need it for the spacer that's going to go in the middle there. But I like these nice tight lines right in here. There's a little knot right there, so I'm not too worried about wasting a little bit of the wood there. And we'll get the other side traced out. Again, these are going to be the two most important lines on this thing, because those two you're going to want to get as exact as possible right now. There's going to be a lot of hand fitting on this, a lot of hand sanding and stuff. Okay, now that I got my two pattern pieces here, I'm going to go ahead and give it a little cut right here. This will make it a lot easier to manage this little piece here. The only other piece you're going to want to make is this little piece right here, and this is your spacer. This is the piece that's going to go inside of here, and you're going to want to make sure that it fits up against the back of the back strap as tightly as possible, and you're going to want to make sure there's plenty of clearance between your hammer spring and your spacer there. Now when you pull the hammer back, it actually pulls in closer, so wherever the hammer is when it's down like that, it's going to be sticking out the most. So we'll get this traced out in this little center piece here probably after I cut everything out, and then we'll see about getting it in there. Okay, now that I got my piece of wood cut out with my two halves of my grip traced onto there, I'm going to get this thing out. We're going to go out to the feed room in the barn because it doesn't hurt if it gets too dusty out there. I like to keep the dust down as low as I can here. It's kind of a bad idea to do wood projects in here where I'm doing the leather stuff, but it is what it is. And I will be doing a lot of sanding outside too, because you know, less dust in here, the less I got to clean up. Now, one of the things about this wood is a 1/2 by 3, and I bought a 4-foot piece of it. Depending on what store you go to, you can get it in different lengths, different sizes and stuff. But 1/2 inch is actually just a tad thinner than the grips themselves. Each side of the factory grips is going to be about 9/16 of an inch. But I found out that when I did the Paladin grips, the black ones that I've got drying and staining and everything right now, it's actually not that bad. It gives it just a little bit thinner, so an 1/8 inch total overall. But it's really not that bad. It still feels good in the hands and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the 1/2 inch thick. The one thing you do want to make sure you do is get that whole surface rounded, because you don't want flat spots on there. I don't want flat spots on there anyways. There are no flat spots on here other than the parts where it goes up against the frame, the top of the grip frame and the back of the frame there. So we're going to go ahead and work with it and get it rounded up as much as we can. Anyways, let's get outside and get this thing cut apart and then start shaping on it. Okay, instead of going in the feed room, it's kind of dark in there. It's a lot brighter outside here. It is overcast today, and it is kind of cool. That's the reason for the vest. I was like 44 this morning, so it's brisk out here. I'm going to put a dust mask on this time while I'm cutting, especially while I'm sanding, because the sander is going to kick off a lot of really fine dust. But I've got my piece out here and I'm using my scroll saw, and the scroll saw is going to give me a much finer cut. You could use a bandsaw. You could use a bandsaw if you wanted to, but you really don't get the nice tight radius. Not that you need a whole lot of tight radius other than the inside here, but with the scroll saw you really don't have to make those relief cuts because the blade is so small. So I'm going to get geared up and get to cutting. Okay, now once you got all the fun stuff done on the saw there, the scroll saw, now you'll see I did not cut real close to these lines, especially not the 2 straight lines that are going to fit up in the frame there, because those are going to be the 2 critical ones. I want to make sure they fit up into the frame on the Revolver. Now I brought this out here, I've got it wrapped up in plastic to kind of keep the dust to a minimum on it, but I'm going to have to sand a little bit, fit it in there, make sure it's right, and then continue or stop or whatever, and then do the shaping. Okay, when I marked these out, what I did was I marked on the outside. This is the grain I want to see here. That is going to have to remain the outside, so they're going to be the right outside, the left outside. So what I'm going to do is on here, I'm going to write right, and on here I'm going to write left. Now I sharpened my pencil in kind of a way that makes it an oval lead instead of conical shaped, and I want that to be able to get a good tracing up against the frame. And what I want to do first is I want to get these 2 edges right here, I want to get those squared up and fit to the frame as best I can. So we'll do that first. Okay, I've got my 2 angles fit in there nice and tight, and the wood hangs over the grip frame just a little bit. And you want to make sure that it hangs over all the way around. And the reason I sharpened my pencil with that oval point on there is because I want to be able to get as close as I can there, and I want to trace it from this side. This is going to get me the closest I can get to the grip frame without going too far. And you can see there's quite a bit of wood hanging over on the edge there, which is fine. It's easy to take care of with the sander. Now once I've got a good line established on there, that's the final line I want to trim it to with the sander. I don't want to take that line off. I want to get real close to it. If you take it off, that's it. You don't want to go any farther than that. Not only do I need to trace that line, but I need to put it back on there. And I need to trace on the top and on the front there too, because it's got to be the same width as the frame is there. So what I'll do is I'll trace a line on this side, and my wood is a little burnt right there because I really should change my disc on there, but hopefully it'll be enough for me to see the line. Now I don't need to take that off, I need to make this top go down to that, and then I need to start getting my rounded crown part on the grip there. And I need to do this to both sides, and still a lot of shaping to do before I get to the hand sanding part. Alright, so now I'm going to start sanding to the lines I've traced on the inside there and get as close as I can to them. That's that much less hand sanding I got to do. More sanding. Give you a little close-up of what I've done here so far. I've used the top edge of the 1-inch belt sander on there to kind of force it to flatten that out on the end there and get me close to that line right there. The underside is a little trickier to get to. I've also used that top edge to kind of whittle it down around the corners here. I do have a new belt for that, so I'm going to go ahead and get it changed out and get it put on there. Alright, the rest of it is going to be up to you as a sculptor or a woodworker to get it shaped the way it needs to be, but you can see I've got it thinned down quite a bit right there. I do still have my lines there, which I'm okay with that. Hand sanding is not that big of a deal. It's a whole lot easier to take it off. Sometimes it's too easy to take it off, especially with something like that. Putting that new belt on there, it really took some wood off of there, but you can't put it back on. You don't want to put it back on. The only thing you can do is wood filler, but let's not do that. Anyways, I've got this one roughed in pretty good, and I've got the flat spot out of it, which would be right back here at the back. It's got just a gentle curve on it. So the rest of it I think is going to be hand sanded. Now I'm going to get the other one roughed up like this one and move on from there. Alright, one of the things I probably forgot to mention is your spacer that goes in the middle there, that's going to hold your two grips on the sides there. Piece you're going to glue to the inside of both of those grips is going to be too thick if you cut it out of the 1/2-inch material. It's going to be, I would say, about a 32nd, maybe a 16th too thick, so you're going to have to thin that down, and you're going to have to be extremely careful when you do that because you want a good tight fit in between there. If you get it too small, as long as it's not too much, you can sand between the grips to open that up a little bit, but try your best to get it the right thickness. I really wish I had a planer, and that way I could go ahead and mic the grips and see what the actual thickness is, run it through there, and then just cut it out and be done with it. But I have to rely on my disc sander again there and fit it up as I'm going. Now the rest is hand sanding. Alright, once you got your grips all roughed in, go ahead and get comfy for a while. Sit down, relax, out in Mother Nature, enjoy the sights and sounds and all that good stuff, and get to sanding. I've got one of these 3M rubber sanding blocks here. Actually, I've got two of them. I've got one with 80 grit and one with 220 on it. And I'm just going to do some shaping. I'm going to keep watching my lines, and I've got the Revolver out here with me because I want to be able to check it from time to time and make sure I don't go too far. Now the 80 is a little aggressive, but I left some pretty angular grinds on here, so I'm going to get it roughed in with this, and then I'll do the final sanding with the 220. It's going to take you a little while. Looks pretty good. I got them smoothed out. Now, not as smooth as if I was going to stain them and put a little clear coat on them, because remember I said I'm going to make these look like an old aged weathered look. So now that I got them shaped out and smoothed out, I got all the really rough faceted kind of cuts and everything off of it. Let's go ahead and get this back to the house, and I'll show you how I'm going to make this look like old aged barnwood, and I hope I don't screw it up. Alright, I got it clamped down to board right here, and this is the secret. Some people recommend you use the twisted wire wheels. I prefer to use just the crimped ones because it's a little softer, a little less aggressive. But we're going to go with the grain on this thing and see how it does. it's eaten away all the softer woods on there and has left some of the harder stuff behind. I'm gonna have to move it around a few times to get all the sides on and everything, get up here at the top and stuff, and we'll see how it looks. Okay, so I got the wood all aged. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the centerpiece glued in there, and I'm only going to do one side at a time. And what I'll do is fit that up in there. I'm going to go ahead and take my pencil and mark out an area in there, about where the piece is going to go, at least the back side of it through the frame here. And then I'll take the piece itself, fit it on there. The whole reason for this is I don't want to get a whole bunch of extra glue in there if I don't need it. So I'll go ahead and mark my line around there, and I can go ahead and take my wood glue. And this is Titebond 3. This is a waterproof exterior or interior glue. So I'm going to get a little bit of that on here. Get it smeared around in there some, and like I said, try to stay, the less chance I got of getting it on the frame there, the less chance I got of anything sticking in there. And go ahead and smear the extra on that side, because that's the side that's going to get glued anyways. Alright, we'll go ahead and get this on there. Now you don't want to just try to go by the line and say, okay, it's good, because it's probably not going to be good, but we'll get a good squeeze on it, get a little bit of that excess glue out of there, and we're going to fit it up in here. We may have to move it around just a little bit. Get your grip on there where it's supposed to be, and then try to get your piece pulled down and toward the back of the grip. And then once you've got that in there, you're going to want to clamp it, not Jed. You're going to want to get a good squeeze on it. Now, one of the things I did when I did the black grips for the Paladin rig was I went ahead and cocked the hammer, and like I said, that pulls the spring away from the wedge, which it doesn't matter, it's not going to hit it. But I also took a little, somewhere I've got this little paintbrush. Let me find that real quick. Okay, I had this little paintbrush and I wedged it between the spring and the spacer, and then I went ahead and took the pressure off the hammer, and that put more pressure on between the spring and the paintbrush and helped push it to the back there, because that's what I want to make sure. I want to make sure that spring, that spacer's all the way toward the back. I think I like the looks of it with the nice smooth metal on there and everything, but we're going to have to let this dry, and then we'll be able to do the other side. And this will also give you the opportunity to sand that spacer down just a little bit more if you need to, because I was just trying to feel it with my fingers and see if I got it in there right, and it looks to me like I didn't quite get it right. I might need to do a little more sanding on it, and I will hand sand it to make sure I get it in there right. But right now we're just going to let this thing sit and let the glue cure. Okay, the glue has been sitting for a couple hours. So we should be able to take the grip off of there and cock the hammer to ease the tension on that spring, and go ahead and pull the little paintbrush I got out of there. And it's not falling out. So it's fit in there pretty tight, and the glue didn't hold it in there. It didn't hold it into the frame, which is a plus. I did not want that. So it does fit in there pretty snug, which is exactly what I want. And now I just got to get the other half glued on there. But as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking my centerpiece, my spacer, is just a tiny bit too thick. So I'm going to take a little bit of that 80 grit sandpaper on the block and thin that down just a little bit so I don't have a gap. I don't want the grips to wiggle on there. I want them to fit in there snugly. Okay, now I've got it sanded down so it is just pretty much flush with the surface of the inside of the frame part there. Maybe even just slightly, ever so slightly below it, which that's okay too, as long as it's not too much, because the glue will fill in some of that gap. It's got to have space. You don't want to overdo it. And we'll get it smoothed out on there. All right, now I did not mark the inside of this one because, well, it's just going to go where it goes. And we'll put our grip back in there. Careful not to smear the glue everywhere. Then we'll get our other side of the grip put on there. Make sure it's all lined up. And then we'll get our clamp back on it. Now I don't have to worry about putting that little paintbrush back in there to wedge it in there because it's already back as far as it'll go. But we will get a couple clamps on here so that we can get a good squeeze on it. And then we just got to let it sit again. Now to take this off next time, we're going to have a screwdriver because we got to pull the frame off of there to be able to get the grip out of it. Okay, this glue has had a little time to dry, so we're going to take the clamps off of it. Come on off of there. There you go. Now we're going to take the grips off of it. And to get the grips off of here, like I said, it takes screws now. So you got 3 screws, you got 2 of them right in the back there, and you got 1 right on the bottom of the grip. Get you a good screwdriver, something that fits the slot well. Otherwise, you can mess these screws up pretty easily. I prefer to use the screwdrivers with the interchangeable bits because most of the time those bits are hollow ground, which is the way that the end of the bit is made, and it's less chance of slipping, and you can get them in a bunch of different sizes and everything, and it really lessens your chance of messing one of the screws up. There are 3 screws, 2 different lengths. The 2 longer ones go on the top there. The one shorter one is going to go on the bottom here. And we can go ahead and pull the whole grip frame off of the back there. That's it. That's both pieces of it there. And this metal piece is going to stay with your grip. And we should be able to get that out of there. And that's a pretty snug fit. I like it. And I don't think the wood turned out quite as nice looking as my bracket on the wall there did, but it's got a really interesting texture to it, that's for sure. Now what we got to do is stain this thing, and to stain it we're going to do 2 different stains on it for sure. Anyways, we're going to do a light stain, we're going to work it down in there really well, wipe off all the excess, and then do a darker stain over top of it and wipe that off because we want to get some of that darker stuff down inside there. Let's do that real quick. Okay, I got my 2 cans of stain here. I've got a light classic gray and I've got a dark walnut. So what we're going to do is get these stirred up because they recommend you don't shake them, and then we'll get it spread out on the grips. So let's go ahead and do the light stuff first. We're going to brush it on and just kind of work it in there some. Oh yeah, making a mess already. You don't have to worry too much about getting it down inside there because you're not going to see that anyways, but we're going to get it all covered up. Then we'll take this rag and wipe off the excess. It really didn't do much for it, did it? Yeah, not caring too much for the gray stain. Just does not do much. All right, I got another brush here. We're going to dip it down in the dark stain and see what it does. Actually, on my bracket that I've got hanging on the wall there, I only used my homemade walnut stain, and that's all that's on it. Okay, we're going to let this dry for a little bit, and then we'll see about putting some true oil over it. Okay, so there it is. I did not put any true oil on this because I just think it would look better as kind of a dull finish. The true oil is going to give it a really glossy finish. I did a pretty good job of fitting it up here. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I got it pretty close up there. Not bad here on the sides either. I could have done a little bit more right there. And the inside right here, I could have done some more. And the bottom. And a little bit more on the back down here, but not a whole lot. I don't think it looks too bad. It might look a little better on a nickel frame revolver, but it's got a unique look, and it's really, you'll get a good purchase on it because of that rough texture that's on there. It feels pretty good, got a nice warm feel to it and everything, and maybe over time it will naturally age a little bit and get that worn look to it, but that's not terrible. I don't think it turned out as well as my hanger up there for my possibles bag, but it's not that bad. Now, I just wanted to show you, this is another way to make grips by hand. Cut them out on a saw, sand them, shape them, and all that kind of stuff. And it's not the only way, and some people are like, well, you know, maybe I don't have enough talent to do that or something, but right over here sits something that'll help you make some grips once I get everything set up. All right, when I did the video where I built my copy carve, I said that, you know, a CNC would be better, but I don't know enough about them. Well, I went ahead and bought one, and I got this off of Amazon. Yes, it is Chinese junk, but it is a desktop one, and really it doesn't need to be very big to make grips, and that's what I'm going to concentrate on making with this thing, is grips. I have done some little signs. There's a little one in the back there that says S.C.A.R on it. I got one that says Saloon. I did some other little things tinkering with it, but I've got to be able to build the grips in 3D and then get them transferred into here and make some, and then that file can be shared amongst a lot of people. And if you've got one of these, if you've got a better one, and it's not hard to get a better one, this does okay, and it will do it on its own. Where the copy carve, I have to sit there and move everything around. This, once I get it set up, I can hit go and it'll do its thing, cut the pieces out, shape them and everything. Not that I'm going to get into the revolver grip making business, but I would like to make some pretty interesting ones, maybe do some inlays in them and stuff. And this is not a bad tool for it. It's not the highest quality. It's also not the most expensive. I paid less than 200 bucks for this thing, and it's pretty fun right now. So we'll get onto that in another video. Anyways, thanks for taking a look at making grips, another way to make grips. And thanks for watching Small Caliber Arms Review. If you could, hit this button up here to check out some of my other videos, and hit this button down here to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.